Acha, there's nothing to worry. We are quite well equipped what we are doing. Now we have completed the entire story. In the story, the most important thing, that is the persecution thing, modern readers are accustomed to the rigors of the free scientific debate, which allows for a variety of viewpoints so long as data exists to reinforce one's position, even in more esoteric world like philosophy and politics. Wherever you go, there is always a discussion. And then religion comes into it, into something which is very much scientific. That time, what happens? The problem takes place. So what do we find over here is also of these the worst was burning at the stake of Galileo, as it happened in the case of Joan of Arc. And indeed, imagery of flames and burning can be found throughout the life of Galileo. So Galileo's challenged astrology, upon which the authority of the church was partially based, was significant, since his ideas undermined centuries old understanding of the universe. Earth is flat, and what happens that Earth is flat and stagnant, and the sun moves around the Earth. All these are bullshit stories of the church, which Galileo contradicts. And because of this contradiction, what happens that he has to face persecution by the church. So his freedom of thought and speech is affected. He's afraid that now he'll be Galileo's telescope observation strengthened the Copernican theory that the suns lay at the center of the universe and all other heavenly bodies orbit around it, refuting the millennia old Aristotelian concept of Earth being encircled by orbs that propped up the stars. So these stories also contradicted church's teachings on the Christian heaven and the movement of the sun and the earth. So in Brecht telling Galileo as a scientist to pursue the truth, regardless of the effects it may have on the people, religion, and society within which he lives. So the vast institution of the church, on the other hand, is portrayed as a regime that forces people not to see the truth, even when they are offered a telescope. And Galileo's lack of concern with the consequences of his work has him confronting papal decrees, an inquisitor, and armed with machines of torture, scaring Galileo that if he was too smart to act with the church, he would have to face persecution. So the question of what knowledge individuals should possess is a recurrent issue throughout the life of Galileo. For example, in scene 5, when Galileo is in Rome and the church is evaluating the accuracy of his telescopic observation, the astronomer argues with various clergymen who quote scriptures that counters his research. So the infuriated monk says that man can't be expected to understand everything. Later in 7, scene 7, the little monk argues that peasants should know that Galileo's research is refuting the words of the Bible, since they would lose all faith and have no purpose in the life. The nobleman Ludovico is likely concerned with the structure of the society when in scene 8 he cautions Galileo not to continue his research. In Ludovico's opinion, the farmers cannot understand the finer points of astronomy, but having a little knowledge about disrupt would disrupt them and destabilize the entire productive economy. So you see that Galileo understands very well that these poor people will have to bear the brunt of the church if they start believing him. So he has to take a stance. And the moral responsibility of the scientist, he has to keep it in mind. It breaks lives of Galileo, the famous astronomer, and the title character of Galileo frequently demonstrates a lack of concern for the impact of his discoveries on other people. So in scene 4, when Galileo is presenting his telescope and his discoveries to the Florentine court, the philosopher asks Galileo to consider where his research is leading to. Galileo poses a question in return. Are we as scholars concerned with where the truth might lead us? Aghast in the philosopher responds, Mr. Galilei, the truth might lead us anywhere. So throughout the play, Galileo prioritizes the pursuit of scientific truth above everything except his own survival, while other characters express concern for the impact of his research, calling him the Bible killer or pondering the breakdown of the socio-political structure. Galileo pushes his research onward. He does not even concern himself with the impact of his work on his own daughter, whose happiness and married life he casually sacrifices by refusing Ludovico's request that he stop his research. So Brecht's play asks the reader to consider whether the scientist has a responsibility to consider the consequences of his research, to think about the moral responsibility of the scientist. Although first composed in 1930 in Denmark, the version of the play most commonly read is English. In the second 1947 edition, this play contains small revisions made in the wake at the end of the World War II, 1939-45. So as Brecht puts it, Galileo's crime can be regarded as the original sin of modern physical science, which a scientist will have to face. The atomic bomb, both as a technical and social phenomena, is the classical and product of his contribution to science and his failure to society. So the life of Galileo challenges the reader to consider whether the scientist is responsible for the consequences of his discoveries, even the unintended ones. So you find that in the life of Galileo, Galileo's telescope is a symbol represents the division between the research and the observation-based method of science, and the blind faith and obedience that adherence to the religious regime requires. The telescope first appears simply as an instrument that can be used to see things far away. However, in scene 4, the telescope becomes the symbol of the conflict between Galileo's research and those who wish to deny it for any reason. So Galileo presents his telescope and his related discoveries to the court of the Florentine prince Cosimo II, but not one of the members of the court is willing to look through the telescope to see what Galileo and his assistants have seen. So Galileo begs them simply to look. All anybody has to do is look, but they refuse out of fear that this instrument will show them a truth that is incompatible with that they believe. So Popes Urban VIII vestments in scene 11, while Pope Urban VIII has a conversation with the Inquisitor, the Pope's servants dress him in papal robes for a formal appearance. The stage direction indicates that he is plainly identifiable as the former Cardinal Barberini, beginning in the beginning of the scene, and almost completely obscured beneath the garments of its saint, by its saint. So this progressive transformation visually mirrors the narrative action, where the mathematician and pro-science Pope, who happily debated theory with Galileo in scene 6, is subsumed by his new role as Pope and leader of the faithful. Pope will have to be believed by the people because he belongs to the church. Sometimes the Pope dictates that Galileo is right. Galileo will never be believed by the common people. You also have the old woman, the witch, in scene 14, while Andrea is smuggling Galileo's books out of Italy. He encounters a boy who's tormenting a woman he claims is a witch. So when Andrea asks him what he is doing, the boy relates stories that prove she's a witch, and Andrea refutes each of them with a logical explanation. Finally, Andrea lifts the boy to the window, proving that the shadow that appears to prove she is stirring Hellbroth. The Hellbroth, which is very common in Macbeth, the witches that make a Hellbroth in trance or to put Macbeth under magic spell. That Hellbroth is in fact simply a shadow of an old woman stirring soup with a big ladle, not a broomstick. The story is much the same as the allegory of the cave in the plateaus, the Republic. A belief in shadows may be shattered by the research into the origin of the shadows. So the witch symbolizes ignorance, the woman knowledge through the research. So we understand that one thing that Galilei has been trying his best to prove his research, and it is also true that the people around him, they are trying to prove that he is trying to do something which is going against the church. So here is the conflict of Galileo and the church. That is very important. So we have done the important parts of Galileo.